So I have been working on saving some seeds from a few of these pumpkins that I've had in my laundry room stashed away. I actually have so much pumpkin puree in my freezer that I'm just going to go ahead and give these to the chickens and cows. I saved back these pumpkins just because I love these pumpkins and the looks of these pumpkins, so I just wanted to save all these seeds so I can regrow them next year. So I'm just going to go ahead and take these out, try to clean off the pulp as much as I can, and I'm going to put them on some fresh paper towels, and I'm going to let them air dry in my laundry room on my grow shelf for a couple weeks, and then I'm just going to stash them away where my seeds are. So next year I'll be ready to plant these, and I'm just going to make sure I put the names down of what they are. I love these decorative pumpkins, so I just want to make sure that I'm saving these seeds because I really don't want to buy any seeds next year. I'm really focused on not buying many seeds like I used to. So I used to be really crazy about buying seeds in January and February. I'm trying to teach myself that I don't need to buy so many seeds and just stick to the basics of what we eat and go from there, because it does get overwhelming and tiring growing a huge garden and just having so much growing, and then you have to clean all that up by fall and just get your cover crops in the ground for the winter, and it's just a huge cycle that I'm just trying to narrow down everything that I truly want to grow now. So saving these seeds are really going to help me save some money for one, and then I'll just have my certain pumpkins to grow next year. I'm just going to do my typical orange jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, and then I'm going to have these decorative pumpkins for my front porch, and a lot of these are pie pumpkins. So since I already have some in my freezer, I'm not going to worry about saving the pulp or anything. So here in a little bit you'll see my two little boys. They asked if they could take these to the chickens for me, and I am just going to let them do it because they are so independent. They love to help, and I think it's really good for them to learn how to do things on their own. So we're going to fill up the wheelbarrow with all these scraps, and they're going to take them to the chickens for me. So like I said, I made sure that I wrote down what the pumpkin is or what color it was, so I know kind of the difference of what pumpkin seeds I'll be planting next year. And I just put them on my grow shelf in my laundry room to dry for a couple weeks, and then I'll just put them into bags and I'll store them away into where I put my seeds. So it's kind of nice to get this grow shelf right here cleaned off, and all I have now is these seeds to put away, and I will be ready to start planting in January and February on these grow shelves. And the boys, they're taking the pumpkins out, they're enjoying it. They love to help, and it was a little heavy for them, but with any boy, they love a good challenge. So I got into the garden this day, and it was freezing cold outside, but I had to get these frost claws and nets put away for the year. My brassicas are totally done growing, so I need to rip out what's left in this garden and clean it up, and I'm going to try to get a cover crop growing in here, because some of these days are still pretty warm. We are getting into the freezing temps though, so I'm hoping that the cover crop will start growing a little bit at least and give the soil some nutrients. These are the last couple rows that I need to finish and cover for winter time. There's just these 3 brassica rows, and I have my onion row that I need to finish. These frost claws actually don't last very long. They probably last up to 2 years and they start disintegrating, and then these nets actually have held on for quite a while. I think I've had them for 2 years. So every 2 years I have to buy frost cloths, which is a bummer because, you know, that's kind of a cost that you have to keep in mind. So, but it's totally worth it. I will say it's a game changer. If you're trying to grow brassicas, I highly recommend having these nets and frost cloths because it just prevents that moth that comes in and lays the eggs and just ruins your crop. So I highly recommend getting some frost cloths or any type of cover for spring and fall. It doesn't matter. Either those slugs or those moths will come in and just destroy the whole entire crop and just eat away at the vegetable. So I haven't really had too many problems this year with any worms or anything like that. So I think I had like a couple cabbages that had worms in it, but for the most part they stayed pretty clean, and that really makes me happy. I don't like dealing with a bunch of slugs and worms inside these brassicas. So all these scraps, I'm taking them straight to the chickens. They will eat this down in a couple weeks. They just love eating all the garden scraps. We always give our animals all of the stuff that's left over just to keep them healthy. And going into winter, they don't get very much greens and stuff, which I tried to at the grocery store buy them some treats every once in a while. I'm just sitting here cleaning up these frost cloves. I like to braid them because it's easier to store them away. And I just want to show you guys the rawness of putting all this away. It does take a long time, but it is worth it. I only cover at least 3 to 4 rows. These are about 20 to 25 foot rows, and so it's really not that bad. I only have like maybe 4 rows that I take care of, but still is a lot of work. I highly recommend covering your brassicas because it is such a game changer. So this past week we've been doing a few things on the outside of our house. We've been down in our field cleaning up. If you guys are new here, we bulldozed some of our land in the very back of our house to make more pasture for our cows. And we're basically to the point where we have burned down all the brush piles, and we're getting close to getting a skid steer now to rent and clean up the back of the field and level everything off. But first we're gonna have to save some money so we can rent that piece of equipment for a couple days. It's kind of expensive, so our goal is hopefully by next spring we're gonna save up some money and rent that. My husband's gonna try to do all the work, unless we can find someone reasonably priced to help us level everything off for us. But we have quite a bit of stumps left to still burn. There's a few trees to still cut up and haul out of here, but for the most part, everything's basically hauled out wood-wise. We're just dealing with the stumps right now and trying to pile them up and burn some of them off, which we burned off quite a bit of stumps already, but it's just these really massive, huge ones that we're dealing with. So I don't know if we're just going to use a skid steer and try to maybe haul them to the very back of the property eventually to kind of get them out of the site. But for now, I think we're almost at a standstill other than cutting up those few trees to haul out of here. There's not really much that we can do other than we could move some stumps to bigger piles and get all that ready to be burned whenever it dries up a little bit. It's been raining the past week or so, so everything kind of needs to dry up before we even start burning again. I think there's like a few piles, but they're close to the wood line right now. Kind of dangerous to burn that close to cedar trees, but we're getting really close, and that's exciting. Hopefully next spring we can get all this kind of leveled off and seeded with some grass seed, and then move forward with making it a field one day. So moving on, we are starting our winter composting, and this should be done by spring, hopefully. And we are moving over this pen right here. We actually raise our little chicks inside of this little pen right here. And since they've been gone, this actually broke down quite a bit. We haven't cleaned out underneath here, so we moved over this little chicken tractor that we have right here. And we're gonna scrape up all the stuff that was left over from spring, which is already pretty much broken down. And we wanna use this for compost for next year. So my husband wanted to go ahead and scrape all this up, and we're gonna put this in my composting bin. And then my husband's gonna start cleaning out the chicken house. So basically every start of winter, we like to clean out our chicken house, get it all good and clean, and we actually let it air dry all day long to kind of just air it out. And we're gonna put some pine chips back in there. So all winter, we won't even touch cleaning it until springtime. So they'll have all this insulation, and it'll be our next spring compost that we'll start. So we're gonna get this all good and clean. My boys started to help, but I saw all this dust, and I just told them, you know, they need to stand back because I really don't want them breathing this. My husband actually was wearing a handkerchief on his face right here because you don't want to breathe all of that in because it was super windy this day. And the chickens were just dying to get back into this house, but we wanted to air it out all day just because it was actually raining pretty hard this past week, and some of the water got inside the house, and we wanted to kind of air it out so no mold or anything was going to start forming. So I actually like using pine chips instead of straw, which I do use straw sometimes, but straw just brings in so much weed seeds, and honestly, this pine chips breaks down quite faster, so we've been using pine chips back in our chicken house, and it's a lot easier whenever we turn over our compost when we cook it. So getting back into the garden here, cleaning up these rows. I'm actually going to be putting our leftover compost that you saw on the left side of our composting bin and putting it on these rows. And here in just a little bit, you're going to see how black and beautiful this soil is. I'm so happy. These rows have really been taken care of with compost for a couple of years, and there's so many worms in here that I noticed whenever I was working in here. So I'm just pulling back all this black plastic, and I'm going to actually put it out in my yard for it to air dry because I want all of the sun to dry up the moisture so we don't have any mold or anything growing in the garage when I put it in there all winter. And then, since I use black plastic now, this is really good quality black plastic. I highly recommend it. But since I actually use this, I used to be really no-till, but I actually bought a little tiller that I'm using now in my garden. And I'm just going to take this little tiller and just going to scrape up just a little few inches of the top, and I'm going to put in some cover crop. Since we are so late in the season, I don't know if this cover crop actually is going to grow, but it's worth a shot. I'm going to try to get these all covered up, and my husband already mowed up all the leaves and he forgot to save me some. Usually I'll put leaves on these rows and call it good, but I don't have any leaves left over in my composting. We're just going to throw some seed down, and then my husband's going to put some compost on top, and we're going to see if it'll grow. But you can just see how beautiful and black this soil is. I am so happy with how this soil is turning out. So we're going into this, I believe it's 2 years now that we put this garden in here. I've noticed over time it just gets better and better. So we had to start out doing the no-till gardening because our original soil is just horrible. It's concrete, so many rocks, like creek gravel. So we had to bring in all of this dirt, all of this mulch, and start a no-till garden just because we had to. And I'm actually glad that we did, because now I can see the benefits starting to show. And I knew going into this, researching all this no-till gardening, it takes quite a bit of years to establish a no-till garden. So I'm finally to a spot where I'm actually starting to see our soil improve. So now that we're established now and have a really good soil from bringing all of this in, because if I had it my way, I would definitely till like we did at our old house and go from there, but we had no choice in moving here. It just was horrible soil, and we just absolutely had to bring all of this in, and it was so expensive. But looking back now, I'm so glad that we took the time and the money and put all of this in here, because now 2 years in, we're basically established, and we're just maintaining all of the rows with compost, cover crop. Sometimes we use shredded leaves to keep everything covered, and just trying to keep this soil as healthy as we can. So basically now our biggest expense is bringing in mulch every year for our walkways, which I'm cutting down a lot of our walkways. I'll be talking probably more about that in my next couple videos, but I'm trying to just narrow down expense now for this garden. And so basically we just buy mulch every year for our walkways. We have to keep up on that because weed seeds and everything start taking over quickly, and this mulch actually breaks down so fast, and you have to keep up with it. And we only use a wheelbarrow bringing in all this mulch. We don't have a tractor or anything like that, so it's really back-breaking work, but it's totally worth it. And then we just maintain the soil by going out, gathering our composting stuff. I have some videos on how we compost in the summer and fall. You guys can go back and look at that. But mainly, everything is established now. We just maintain everything, our rows and everything, and we have to keep up weeding. So after working in the garden for quite a while, we had to come to a stop because our children were coming off the school bus soon. and we needed to get supper going. So tonight we're actually gonna have some homemade pizza. So I made some homemade pizza dough, and we took some garden fresh tomato sauce that we canned up over the summer, and we're gonna put some tomato paste in our sauce and kind of thicken it up a little bit. So we have some homegrown sausage from our pig meat, and we mix in some beef. We get a beef slaughtered every year from a farm, and then so we mix those two together, and then we're gonna top it with some olives, cheese, and my husband put some jalapenos on some of the pizzas. So we just kept it really simple. I wanted to play around with making some mozzarella rolls, and they actually turned out really good. I'm actually gonna start making those for my grandma's Christmas that she's gonna have. So I'm excited to try that again. So I just wanted to show you guys that we actually do eat a lot of our garden stuff that we can up, freeze, and so here is just our basic tomato sauce that we can up every year. You can do so much with your tomato sauce. You can use it in so many different dishes, and this is just one of them. And we don't usually go out for pizza anymore because we just don't think it tastes as well as homemade. So after dinner we went out to finish up putting the pine chips back into the chicken house, and I still needed to wrap up all of my plastic and get it into the garage so I didn't have to air it out again the next day from all the moisture. Thank you guys so much for coming along today and seeing us clean up the garden and getting our composting ready for spring. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and hope you guys have a blessed day.